हेलो गाइस। आज हम लोग पढ़ने वाले हैं एक स्टोरी जिसका नाम है अराकने। ये एक मॉरल स्टोरी है और अगर आप मेरे चैनल पे न्यू हैं तो लाइक और सब्सक्राइब ज़रूर कीजिए। There was a young girl in Greece whose name was Arachne. She had a big and blue eyes and a fair skin. Her hair was long like coat. She lived with her mother and father in a tiny village, dotted with lines, cottages, surrounded by fig trees, green hills, and valleys. All that Arachne cared to do from morning till noon was to sit in the sun and spin, and all that she cared to do from noon to night was to sit in the shade and weave. And oh, how fine and beautiful were the things which she wore in her loom flax. Wool, silk, she worked with them all. And when they came from her lovely hands, the cloth which she had made of them so fine and soft and bright that men, women, and children came from all the parts of the world to see it and purchase. They exclaimed, "Cloths so rare can be not made of flax or wool or silk. It's surely made up of rays of sunlight or threads of gold." They praised her to the skies, and this made Arachne very happy. Alas, as day by day the girl sat in the sun and spun the thread, or sat in the shade and wove, she said, "In all the great wide world, there is no yarn so fine as mine. And in all the great wide world, there is no cloth soft and smooth, nor silk so bright and rare." Without realizing it, Arachne said to say, had become proud of her talent. She had become full of pride after listening all the praises of men, women, and children. The gods and goddesses up there watched Arachne become proud, so proud that she forgot to be nice human being. They decided to do something about this. Jupiter, the king of all gods and goddesses in the heaven, decided to send Athena, the goddess of tapestry and also the queen of air, to the earth and teach this beautiful girl a lesson. One afternoon, there was a knock on the door of Arachne's cottage. Arachne herself opened the door to find an old bent woman standing there with the help of stick. "You must be Arachne. I have come to see your fine work," said the old woman as she came in. Arachne took her straight to the room where all her work was displayed and stood there, looking at the old woman disdainfully. The old woman looked at the fine cloth and admired every single piece. "Your work is so beautiful, but surely it is not beautiful as that of Athena's, the goddess of tapestry," she said, looking straight at the girl. How can anyone's work be better than of mine?" "I am very best," replied Arachne, looking proud and haughty. Even better than goddess Athena's? Asked the old lady. Bah, can she weave goods like mine? I should like to see her try. Let her come down from heaven and challenge me, she cried, stamping her foot. Then so be it, Arachne, for I am Athena. And so saying, the old woman was transformed into tall, beautiful woman wrapped in long cloak. Her face was lovely but stern. Oh, so stern. Her grey eyes were sharp and blazing with such anger that Arachne could not meet her gaze. The goddesses waited for Arachne to repent and apologize, but no apology came. तो अभी तक कैसी लग रही है आपको कहानी? अच्छी, क्योंकि अब इसके बाद आखिरी पेज होगा, तो लाइक ज़रूर करिएगा। तो हम मजाक कर रहे थे, अभी 3 पेजेस और हैं। इन ये कहानी इतनी इंटरेस्टिंग है, तो मुझे तो बहुत पसंद आई। चलिए फिर से आगे बढ़ते हैं टाइम वेस्ट किए बिना। Well then, very well. Then now let me tell you what we will do. 3 days from now, we will both weave. You on a loom and I on mine. The great Jupiter, who sits in the clouds, will be the judge. And if your work is the best, I will weave no more as the world will last. But if my work is the best, then you shall never use loom or spindle. Do you agree? Arachne, so sure of herself, threw back her hand and hotly said, Of course, let's begin. All the world was there to see it. The weaving contest between a human being and a goddess. The great Jupiter sat among the clouds and looked on. The contest began. Arachne had set up a loom in shade of the mulberry tree, where butterflies and bees were flitting from flower to flower. But Athena had up her loom in the sky, where breezes were blowing and the summer sun was shining, for she was also the queen of air. Then Arachne took the finest silk and began to weave. She wove a thread of marvelous beauty, so thin, so light that it could float in the air, and yet so strong that it could hold a lion in its meshes. As for the colors, they were so beautifully arranged and mingled one with another that all who stood and watched were filled with delight. Jupiter himself nodded and smiled. Then Athena began to weave. She took the sunbeams that glided the mountain top, the snowy fleece of the summer clouds, the blue color of the summer skies, the bright green of the summer fields, and brown rust and purple of the autumn woods. And what do you suppose she wove? The web which she wove in the sky was full of enchanting pictures of flowers and gardens and castles and towers and mountain high, full of snow and of men and beasts, and of giants and of dwarfs and of mighty beings who dwell in the clouds with the Jupiter, and all those who watch from the earth and from heaven was so filled with wonder and awe that they forgot all about the beautiful web which Arachne had woven. And Arachne herself was ashamed and afraid when she saw it. She hid her face with her hands and wept. Oh, how can I live? She cried. Now that I must never again use loom or spindle. And she wept and she wept and kept on weeping. And she, how can I live? When Athena saw the poor maiden would never have joy unless she were allowed to spin and weave, she took pity on her. Arachne, I would free you from bargain if I could, but that thing no one can do. You can never touch a loom or spindle again, and yet, since you will never be happy, you spin and weave, I will give you a new form that you carry on your work, neither with a loom, neither with a spindle. So, can you guess what does Arachne mean? You have just some seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, Arachne converted her into a spider. Fun, no? Let's read another page. Athena touched Arachne with the tip of the spear she carried with her, and the maiden was changed at once into a nibble of spider, which ran to a shady place in the grass and began merrily to spin and weave a beautiful web. I have heard it is said that all spiders which have been in the world since then are the child of Arachne, but I doubt whether this is true. Yet, for all we know, Arachne still lives, spins, and weaves. Why? The next very spider that you see may be Arachne herself. This story was written by James Baldwin and it was a classic animal stories.